What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Therapy on Two Wheels. Today, I'm going to be talking about what it's like to live with post-concussion syndrome. Let's jump in. So first off, I'm just going to start off with talking a little bit about what post-concussion syndrome is. If you are watching this video, you probably directly search for it with either yourself having gone through some type of brain injury. It could be a family member or a friend, just trying to learn a little bit more information. This is something that I've gone through personally myself, that I have experience with. I had a concussion, it would have been about 6 years ago at this point now. And with that concussion came post-concussion syndrome. So I'll talk a little bit about what that is first, what kind of the symptoms are, and then some things that you can do to help along the way as hopefully those symptoms start to reduce or completely go away for you after that head injury. So what is post-concussion syndrome? Well, whenever somebody has a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, typically this can be whether it's from a car accident, it could be a sporting injury. There's a lot of different things where it could cause post-concussion syndrome. For me, it was playing in a basketball league. I took a charge, fell back, hit my head pretty hard, kind of bounced off the ground. And after that, started dealing with all of these symptoms that I wasn't too aware of. Didn't really know much about concussions and what post-concussion syndrome is. So a lot of the symptoms that I had, which correlated with post-concussion syndrome, was headaches, nausea, sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound, mood swings, dizziness, trouble with concentration, and also memory loss or trouble with short-term memory. Now, all of these things I had basically all together when I first had my concussion, and to varying degrees of severeness with each one. I'd say probably the worst and the ones that I hated the most were the headaches and the nausea, which for me, the headaches and the nausea just make it so that you can't do very much throughout the day. It was hard for me to work. It was hard for me to do any type of exercises. Even just talking to people, at a certain point would cause me to have headaches and nausea. And with the headaches and nausea, like the first thing that you have to know with any of these symptoms is that you have to let your brain heal. It's not like any type of other bodily injury. I've had a lot of sports injuries in the past, and typically those just take a little bit of time. Maybe you're in a cast if you broke a bone. Maybe you're going to physical therapy to help if it's a muscle injury, ligament tendon injury, or if you had surgery, something like that. With a brain injury, there's not really much that you can physically do to make those symptoms worse besides just relaxing your brain. For me, what I had to do is take a 2-week period completely off of work. I couldn't do any exercising, couldn't watch any TV, couldn't be on my phone. Basically couldn't do anything. I sat there and colored in coloring books for probably 6 to 8 hours a day, or listened to podcasts, lay down on the bed, lay on the couch, and eventually start getting into meditation and some other things. But you really have to let your brain relax. And it's very hard when you're kind of a type A personality like myself, and you always want to be doing something. It's difficult to just stop doing everything because you almost feel like you're being lazy. And for some people, not a problem. They would love it to just sit on a couch or lay down on a bed for 12 hours a day and then go to sleep at night. For me, it was very difficult. So first thing that I can say is let your brain rest, let it heal. That is going to make it so much better for you in the future, and you're going to have a lot more issues, and your brain is going to heal a lot quicker if you're not trying to do a bunch of stuff at the same time. Another thing that really helped me, especially for the ones that I mentioned that were the kind of biggest issues for me with the nausea and headaches, it was daily, it was almost all the time. Sometimes it would get so severe that I just had to go lay down because I couldn't get rid of it. And one of the things that I found, it was actually about a year after my concussion, is I was reading some articles and I found some stuff that said that acupuncture was really good for any type of brain injuries, especially to help with whether it was pain, nausea, headaches. And so I decided to try that out. And I'll let you know too, if you are going to try this, it is not an immediate effect. It's not like you go to an acupuncture session once and you're completely healed, all your symptoms go away. It doesn't work like that. It does take time. and repetitiveness. So I think I went 3 times a week for about 2 months or so before most of those symptoms went almost completely away. I had daily headaches and nausea. It was pretty much every hour of most days. And after that first year, it had decreased a little bit, but I was still dealing with daily issues. So that's when I tried acupuncture, and it took probably about 3 to 4 sessions before I noticed any, I guess, more noticeable results, to where there was kind of a significant decrease in the headaches and nausea. And then it took probably about, I'd say, 10 to 12 sessions, somewhere in there, before I noticed significant improvements or significant decrease in my headaches and nausea. It went almost completely away. It was amazing. I can go pretty much an entire day without having a headache, pretty much an entire day without having nausea, and that was just vastly different to what I had experienced beforehand. So for me, that was a huge game changer. Now, that really didn't get rid of the other stuff that I was dealing with. It mainly focused on my headaches and nausea. So for the other things, such as the sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound, there are some things that you can do while you're going through post-concussion syndrome and you're having these symptoms. And for me, with the sensitivity to sound, it was earplugs. If I went anywhere that was moderately loud, or especially if I went somewhere like a concert or a sporting event that I knew was going to be really loud, I would always have earplugs. The little wax earplugs, you can buy like a 12-pack of them for $5-6. They're fairly cheap. Those are the best ones that I found, because they're really easy to just place in your pocket. You can take them with you. They're very easy to just kind of break apart and mold as you see fit. And so I just take one of those little wax earplugs, split it in half, put half in each one of my ears, and that would help me a lot through some of those loud events that I would either have to go to or really wanted to go to, but just didn't want to deal with a lot of the issues that I had experienced with post-concussion syndrome. So another thing that had really helped me with specifically the mood swings, the irritability, kind of those mental changes that you're going through because you did have a traumatic brain injury, was meditation. It helped me out significantly. It's something that, because I couldn't really work out, and I'll get to that in a couple points here, but couldn't really do any physical exercise, at least more intense physical exercise, outside of just bare minimum walking, which even that wasn't recommended for the first couple of weeks. If I got my heart rate above probably about 120, 130, I'd feel super dizzy. The headaches and the nausea would come back immediately. So I had to find other ways to kind of de-stress myself and deal with anxiety, with depression, a lot of those things that are a lot more heightened after you have a traumatic brain injury. And meditation was something that I picked up. And it's kind of like acupuncture. It's not like you do it once and then everything is fixed. That's something that you have to keep up with over time and just continue with it, because the more that you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more it's going to help you. So for me, with whether it was just general anger, with anxiety, with depression, meditation was one of those things that I started doing that I noticed probably after about 2 or 3 months, some significant changes. And while I was doing medication, actually during those sessions, you will notice that you have more of a relaxed state, more of a relaxed mentality. So it does help in the moment, as well as kind of with those long-term effects. But again, just like acupuncture, that's something that you have to keep up with to continue seeing those benefits and seeing those symptoms decrease. The other thing, I kind of touched on this before, is if you experience dizziness, which I did, I would feel like I was going to pass out if my heart rate ever got above 120, 130, which for me, my heart rate's probably at about 100. I'm doing walking. If you're doing any type of moderate activity, it's going to be above 120. And especially if you're older too, the older you get, typically, your heart rate's not going to be able to go. You don't have a super high max heart rate. So for me, I was, I think, 28 at that time when I had the head injury. And, I still probably had a max heart rate of about 180, but around 120, that's when I started to have some major issues. So for the dizziness specifically that I was dealing with, I had to decrease the types of exercises that I was doing, the length of exercise. It was just mostly walking. I could do some very light weights, some body weight exercises. It was just a huge change in what I was used to. Because before that, I I have a bachelor's degree in exercise science. I ran my own personal training business for 6 years. Working out and exercise and physical activities, that was a huge part of my life up until that point. And after that, I had to find something that was less physically challenging, which is actually kind of a long story how I got into motorcycling. Short story is I got into electric bikes first because I wanted to find things that I could do that were still active, but that weren't pushing my body too hard. I wasn't getting my heart rate up too high. So I got into electric bikes, and then from there got into electric dirt bikes, and then eventually got into motorcycles. So I decided I was going to let the machines do more of the work for me. So that way, if I'm on a terrain like this, that's a little bit more technical, I'm on a naked bike. It's not the best bike for this type of terrain, but my heart rate's probably around 90 or 100 right now. Like, I'm not completely relaxed, but I'm also not doing something that's crazy physically active. So that is one thing that I would suggest if you're going through that. Don't jump right back into doing intense physical exercise, especially if you're a sports athlete, you're dealing with a brain injury. Take your time getting back into it until a lot of those symptoms have gone away. Just take it easy. Keep yourself in shape. It's both good for you physically, for health, as well as mentally. So you still want to do some type of exercise, but you have to keep it a lot less intense than you may be used to. And the last thing I want to talk about here is for kind of concentration and memory. Those are definitely going to decrease. Part of that is you're having issues with light, you're having issues with sound, with nausea, headaches, dizziness. It's hard to concentrate on anything when you have those types of symptoms. But you have to be aware of how that's affecting you. And if you have a job, like for me, my job was on a computer at 8 hours a day at that time. I couldn't do my work. I physically couldn't do it because I felt like I was going to throw up after 2 minutes of reading an email. So I had to take, those 2 weeks off, and that really helped. But the concentration and memory, these things more so just take time. You can avoid the screens. You can avoid those things that are difficult for your brain. You don't want to be going out and doing complex physics problems right after you have a brain injury, because it's literally going to hurt your brain to try to think about stuff that's complex. So you have to take it easy for a little bit. With the memory, it's a little bit harder. There's not a lot of things that you can do to bring that memory back. Some people that have brain injuries lose complete chunks of their memory or their entire memory. For me, it was kind of bits and pieces. Some of it kind of came back over time. Some of it's still a little hazy. I can talk to my wife or my parents or other people, and they talk about things that we did, and I have no recollection at all, which is kind of weird. It wasn't a specific period of time. It wasn't specific people or events. It was just random what I do and don't remember. And some of those things I'll probably never get those memories back because it's been 6 years since I had the head injury. But just know that there's not really much that you can do to bring that back. And it's difficult sometimes, especially if it's important times of your life that you're not remembering. That can be hard to deal with. But a lot of people that have brain injuries, they go through the same thing. So just kind of count yourself lucky that you haven't completely lost your memory. If that's, hopefully not the case, and you can continue moving forward. Now, for me, long-term memory and short-term memory are a little bit different. Some of those bits and pieces of my long-term memory are gone, but for the short-term memory, I have a little bit more difficulty kind of quickly recalling certain words, or if it was certain things that were just said. It's kind of like those SAT tests that you used to take, or some of those reading comprehension tests. For me, it'll take me 2 or 3 times to read through things to actually get it to sink in. And if somebody tells me something verbally, I have to write it down. I will almost instantly forget, especially if it's something more complicated or there's multiple steps. I have to write these things down because that short-term memory has definitely decreased since my brain injury as well. So I'll be posting a couple more videos on concussions and dealing with post-concussion syndrome. It's something that I've dealt with for the past 6 years. I just want to spread a little bit of that knowledge. Now, I am not a medical professional in any way. So if you had a brain injury, or if one of your family members or friends have had a brain injury, make sure they go and get checked out. It's not something that you want to mess around with. There could be something more serious like a brain bleed that will cause them to die that you want to make sure that they do not have. But if this is for you or if it's for somebody else, hopefully these tips and a little bit of this information does help you out. But I'll post a couple more videos on stuff that I've learned over the years that have helped me and get me back into fully enjoying life, even with some of these issues that I still deal with. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.